Dal is a quintessential comfort food of South Asia, but there's so many different varieties of how dal can be prepared. Indian cooking is hyper-regional. My parents are from two different parts of India, so my father is from North India, and this recipe is, I'd say, more North Indian. The one thing that's awesome about it is that it's like a democratizing food. It's super cheap, it's really wholesome and nutritious, and it tastes really good, and it's easy to make. Hi, my name is Chitra Agrawal. I'm the founder at Brooklyn Deli and the author of Vibrant India. Dal tadka is a dish of creamy lentils that's topped with tadka, and tadka is a flavored ghee, which is infused with the flavor of different spices. There's a variety of different lentils you could use for this dish, but this one I love because it cooks in like 25 minutes. So these are lentils, right? So they are the split form of whole masoor, and whole masoor has a brown skin. So if you find that whole masoor, you could also cook this recipe. I like to try and rinse it until the water becomes a little bit more clear. So that's what you're going for. To begin, we're just going to cut some onion. I've used leeks before. You can use spring onion. We can have some ginger in here as well. I sometimes just peel it with this spoon. I have this ginger grater that I like, or my mom uses this one. I don't know. I really, is this a ginger grater? I don't know. She just calls it a ginger grater, but what, like, now you're just gonna chop up a couple garlic cloves. The preparation of dal goes back to like 800 or 300 BC. Today, dal in Hindi means lentil, or it also can mean the cooked dish that uses lentils, sometimes even beans too. We're gonna start with about 2 tablespoons of oil, and the heat is about at medium-high. Then we're just gonna add in our onions in here. You can fry the onions until they're translucent, but if you have a little bit more time, you can kind of brown them a little bit because it adds like a nice depth of flavor. So now I'm going to add in the ginger and the garlic, and then we're just gonna fry that just for a little bit. So this is a spice tiffin or spice dabba. Every family in South Asia has a spice tiffin or dabba that they use, and it has their most used spices in it. I'm just adding in some turmeric and some coriander powder. And you just want to mix that up really well and just get the spices toasted. And then we can add the drained dal in at this point. And then I usually just stir it up a little bit and then add water. So I bring it to a boil, and then you're going to cook it at like a fast simmer for about 25 to 30 minutes. So you want to get it to this creamy type of texture here. Traditionally, a lot of people, I feel like in India, may use a pressure cooker. So they'll put the lentils or the dal in it, and it becomes just like this creamy mass in a way. So you're gonna get a different type of texture when you're cooking it on the stove, but you may just have to cook it a little bit longer. I have garam masala here. Garam masala, I feel like, is another spice that varies in intensity. So depending on your blend, I would say use a 1/4 teaspoon to a 1/2 teaspoon in this recipe. Garam masala is kind of like a finishing spice. Now I can add some lemon. I mean, this is also to taste, but a 1/2 lemon is about like 1.5 tablespoons or so. The most important part is the salt. Depending on what type of salt you're using, I usually do like 1 3/4 or so. That's the other thing about dal. I feel like every household will make it, you know, more soupy or more thick. And so I feel like I grew up eating it kind of medium in a sense. So that's what, I feel like this is kind of medium. Also, this recipe is so forgiving that if you feel like it's gotten too thick, just add a little bit more water. It's not a big deal. And then you can just boil it off if you think it's too watery too. So now we're going to top it with a tadka, and a tadka is, I'd say it's at the heart of South Asian cooking. It's an infused oil or ghee that has the flavor of different spices, and it could also be flavored with different aromatics like onion or ginger or garlic. You're really adding a ton of flavor when you're using this technique. This is actually a tadka pan. You can use any type of small pan that you have. Whatever you use for a tadka pan, it should have a small surface area because you're heating your oil or your ghee to a high temp. It all happens very, very quickly. And actually tadka or tarka means to crack. So what you'll see is sometimes if you're using an herb or something like, and you put it into the hot fat, it may have some type of moisture. So that will kind of add like a crackling noise. This is ghee. I'm gonna put in about 2 tablespoons, and we want the heat to be at like a medium high. If you're vegan, you can use an oil. I think that when you're making a tadka, it's good to use kind of a mild flavor, high heat oil. Usually what I do is I just put in 1 cumin seed, and if it's dancing a little bit and bubbling, then I know I can put in the rest. I'm gonna put in about a teaspoon of cumin seeds. And then I'm gonna put in just like a pinch of asafoetida. Asafoetida is a really special spice. You either love it or hate it. I feel like it's also sometimes called devil's dung because it's that strong. And now it's really going, and then I'm gonna put in our chili, and then I'm gonna put in a little bit of Kashmiri chili, so it gets nice and hot. And now we're gonna pour it on top of the dal. Another trick I do is to get all of the oil or the ghee out of the pan. I sometimes will spoon back a little bit and just kind of like, that helps to kind of clean out all the flavor that's in the pan. I usually like to put a little bit of fresh cilantro on the top. There you have dal tadka. I want to show you how I eat it. I think that eating Indian food, it's best when you actually eat it with your hand. This is basmati rice, and then we'll take some dal. We'll put that on the top. I like to add a little bit of achar. Achar means pickled or preserved in Hindi. So this is a staple Indian condiment that I make. And then another part of eating rice and dal sometimes is that you have a crispy poppard with it. And in my family, sometimes we didn't have poppard. So my parents would actually get potato chips. I like either one. I like to also have a little bit of yogurt on it, and that kind of adds even more creaminess to it, but it's maybe not as traditional. I can't remember the age that, I learned how to mix food with my hand, but it definitely tastes so much better versus just eating it with a spoon. The flavors just don't meld the same. Sometimes what I would do is I'll have like a piece of poppard in my hand, and then I'll have like, a bite of the rice and dal. And then you have a bite of poppard. That's how I like it. It's just like a very kind of comforting flavor. For the recipe, click below, and if you want to learn more about what I do at Brooklyn Deli, you can go to brooklyndeli.com and buy my achars and this shirt.